All right, everyone. Well, thanks for coming along. We're gonna sort of do our wrap-up call for tonight, and I'm just going to just so you know, if I see someone that's not speaking and there's any background noise, I'll just mute you temporarily. Yeah. So in the last week, people have been doing wallet ratings, and we got quite a few of them submitted. Just a few of them outstanding. I mentioned them in an email, so I won't mention them here, but just a smattering of them. And then we also are in the process of trying to collect responses from developers to our questionnaire as well. So tonight, the purpose is to try to do up as much wrap-up stuff as possible in terms of coming to consensus about the ratings. There's still going to be a few stragglers here and there, but we'll try to get as much wrap-up done as possible. I think probably what makes the most sense to me is we'll kind of go through the procedure steps, not in painstaking detail, but just kind of highlight the ones that seem to be the most ambiguous. So we'll kind of step through them. What I'll do is I'll put a link, or Justice, if you could do this, if you could put a link into our chat to the procedure document, just so everyone can pull it up. And then we'll go through it 1 through 31, I think. Most of them will just breeze past. But if you noticed one where you have a question, you know that you have a question about it, feel free to stop me, and we'll stop and talk about it. And I've made some comments in the margins about ones that I think that would be the most obvious to talk about tonight. And then, so subsequent to that, what I'm hoping is that I'll put everyone's completed worksheets into a shared folder that everyone in the group has access to. And for people who either are wallet developers or rated a particular wallet or whatever, I'll kind of expect them to compare notes. And I will also be looking at the worksheets and trying to identify discrepancies as well. And we'll highlight those in the group after tonight, after this meeting, and I just try to kind of get all the kinks worked out over the next few days until we get to a point of consensus, quote unquote, about what the ratings are for each individual wallet. So if you are a wallet developer in particular, please, definitely pay close attention to people's ratings of your wallets and make sure that your assessment agrees with theirs. Okay, so everyone got the procedure document pulled up? Just give you another moment to do that. Anytime you want to talk during the meeting, feel free to unmute yourself and pipe in. Looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 viewers. I'm expecting one more. Okay, so I'm assuming everyone can hear me fine? Yeah? Okay, cool. So let's start with number 1. Number 1 and 2 are just checking some information on websites, so I don't think that there should be too much ambiguity there. Any questions about those? Okay. And by the way, I will also mention, if you don't want to speak in this conversation, particularly since it's being broadcasted, just type into the text window, and I'll keep that open, and I will read it out loud for you or whatever anonymously. So number 1 and 2. Okay, so number 3. I just made a note here, which is this came up in an email that Laurent sent to me concerning blockchain info. I think what we're trying to get at here, this is a question about whether you can create a wallet without offering PII. My interpretation of this is like, is it possible to do that without going through some extraordinary measures, like not creating a false identity or anything like that? but can you just, is it optional to provide PII? If it is, then I think you get a true for this, and if you are required to offer personally identifiable information, such as an email address, I think would qualify. It's a little bit debatable, but let's say an email address, obviously our name, phone number, any of that kind of stuff is required, then you would get a false for number 3. But I think otherwise it should be true. Any questions or comments about that? I know that Laurent was sort of thinking a bit differently for blockchain. I don't know if he wants to comment on that. Cool. All right, so let's move on. Number 4 through 5 both deal with pins and setting passwords and stuff like that. I didn't really see a lot of questions about that. Any questions that people had that they want to raise? And Rasa, just since you joined in a little bit late there, we're just going through the procedure document. So pull it up if you haven't already, and we're just going through it step by step. All right, so that's number 4 and 5, dealing with pins and passwords. Number 6, so this is about creating a backup of the wallet's private keys, or the HD seed. Most of the wallets that I looked at were in fact HD wallets, where you have to back it up when you first initialize the wallet. Any questions about that one? All right. Number 7. Quick note about this one. So this one is like, does the application ever, on the home screen, does it ever show Bitcoin addresses or transaction hashes? The idea being that someone's shoulder surfing or a security camera or whatever would pick up that kind of thing. I just wanted to point out that we made this like step 7 in the process before you'd actually done any transactions. So just sort of a reminder, once you do some transactions, like please come back to it and verify whether any of that stuff is visible in the home screen. And for the next time, we'll probably move that to a later step in the process. Question? No question. Okay. Good. Number 8. I'm just going to mute people briefly for background noise purposes. Okay. Number 8. I made a note here. So this is you're going to attain a receiving address and make some observations about this and send some Bitcoins. For 8B, I made the following note. In order to get a false for this one, it should actually be impossible to retrieve. Or sorry, no. In order to get a true here, it needs to be impossible to retrieve a prior receiving address from the GUI. So if you just hide it, but it's accessible, I think that's not sufficient for the way that we originally wrote it. And Justice encountered some ambiguity there for Bitcoin QT. Justice, did you want to sort of talk about that at all?
Yeah, there is an option in Bitcoin QT to reuse an address for receiving, and it says not recommended. And wasn't sure at first how to rate that, but I don't think that actually meets our criteria, because this is a feedback question, and it's not telling users why the action isn't recommended. It's just telling them not recommended. But it's not telling them anything about how it's going to affect their privacy. So I don't think that would qualify.
I would agree with that. That was my first thought as well. Rasa, did you say you had a question about this? Question, Mycelium allows you to sign messages with your Bitcoin addresses in case you need to prove ownership. you're technically able to go into Sign, get a list of all addresses, and copy and paste one to later send to. Let's see, let me go back to the step to sort of compare. I'm not sure that I would say that qualifies as a counting against mycelium, because that seems to be rather outside of the normal receive workflow. Justice, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think we should look up the actual criteria that question references, which I was getting ready to paste a link into the chat for that.
Good idea. So the criteria in this case is 1A, 2B. That's Roman numeral 1. And Justice will paste a link to the document. So if we pull that up, 1A, 2B. Okay, so this is under protection from block-up chain of servers, receiving address management, feedback, and then finally preemptively indicate a loss of privacy when the user elects to receive funds at a previously used address, or prohibits this entirely. I would sort of suggest that copying it from the signing screen doesn't. Shoot, I'm very ambivalent about that.
Well, I think copying it to the clipboard and then somehow transferring that in some extra workflow outside of the wallet would not count as allowing you to receive to the address, because I don't believe it's possible to just get a QR code from an address that's in your clipboard through the Mycelium app, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's correct. You know, receiving is tricky, right? Because wallets are still using Bitcoin addresses as a means of prompting payment, which I think in the long run is not a great approach. But anyway, that's what they do right now. And it's very different from sending. Like from sending, you have to go way out of your way to try to take some element out of the wallet and then send by other means, right? Like you basically have to import a seed or a private key into another wallet and do it from there, which I think at that point it ceases to be the responsibility of the originating wallet. Receiving is a little bit weird because you could copy. It's not that atypical that you would copy an address and paste it into an email or a text message or something to that effect. But in this case, I'm sort of leaning more towards what you're saying, Justice, that this would be, it would be nice if there was some warning that said like, hey, this is about previously. So it might be nice if there was some warning that says like, hey, this is not a good thing to use to receive funds, and that would be some feedback that the wallet potentially could give to the user, but I'm not sure if it makes a lot of sense to count against the wallet in this case.
Yeah, I don't think the criteria as we wrote it would require that level of warning. I mean, because we were originally thinking about basically, can you get a QR code for an old address without being warned that this would reduce your privacy?
Right. Okay. I'm just making a note in the document in case other people need to refer to this. So basically saying we won't count this against Mycelium for listing addresses, a signing screen. So if there was another wallet that did something similar, we would also not count it against them. I haven't noticed that in any of the wallets that I've looked at so far. But hey, Jameson.
Mm-hmm. Hey.
Just to catch you up to speed real quick, basically what we're doing right now is we're going through the the list of steps in the procedure document, and if there are any comments that I've left in the document, we're kind of discussing any ambiguities that I've noticed, and if other people have noticed or have questions that they're aware of those procedure steps, they should kind of interrupt and provoke some discussion about that. So we're at number 8B. Are you aware of any steps prior to that one that you noticed you wanted some clarification or discussion?
No, I think I messaged you with everything that I ran into.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I may or may not have folded those into these. So just as we're going through the questions, keep an eye out for that. Let me just make sure that there are a couple comments here in the chat. I want to make sure that we processed them correctly. Yeah, I think we're settled on 8B, if I understand correctly. Okay, cool. Number 9 is about creating stealth addresses. I didn't notice any ambiguities there. Number 10, receiving some Bitcoin. Sorry, number 9 was sending to stealth addresses. Number 10 was about creating a stealth address and sending and receiving to it, or if you couldn't do that, you would just do a normal address. No, I had it right the first time around. So, but I didn't notice any questions about the stealth address stuff.
I had a bit of a sort of ambiguity on the rating. I think it was from 10B1. I couldn't figure out. I was doing Hive, so there's no stealth address support, and I just couldn't figure out whether or not I should say true or false. So I put in NA. Let me have a look. It was 10B1, 10BI1, 10C, okay, and 10D.
Okay. So 10BI1 was if the wallet performs mixing automatically.
Which it doesn't.
User, it doesn't do that. So I think it was an NA for that one, but later on.
The C and D, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, later on in the steps.
Because there's no stealth address.
Can you do mixing at all? Okay, so for the mixing one, that's going to be NA, but later on you'll fill in like 100 for the number of clicks that it would take to do mixing. C. Sorry, so can you just read out the part for C that you were a question about?
Yeah, but let me just check. Hang on. So it's 10C, 10D. Let me have a look. Oh yeah, so it's like view the resulting transaction in a Block Explorer website. I haven't got a transaction, so I'm kind of like twiddling my thumbs at that point. So I don't have a change address.
You don't have any transactions?
Well, there's no stealth. This is stealth addresses, isn't it? So I can't. So
this question. Sorry if this was not clear. So the idea was try to do it with stealth. If you can't do it with a stealth address, then you just do it with a regular address.
Yeah, I missed that. Yeah.
So for 10C, you would see like.
Yeah, I missed that. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, right. So I'll redo that.
Great. All right. Much appreciated. Thanks for asking about that.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
All right. So number 11 is about sending to P2SH addresses. I'd be surprised if any of them were completely unable to send to P2SH at this point. And as far as I know, there aren't any that like create a leftover, create an intentional P2SH, as in like starting with the number 3 change address to match the output address. Copay might do that accidentally by virtue of being multi-sig. And let's see, and yeah, and I think for 11B, if the wallet is incapable of sending to P2SH, I think actually the value for this should be true, because that means that you wouldn't get into a situation where the script type of the spending address is, or the address that you're sending to mismatches the change address. Would you agree with that, Justice?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so I'm gonna make that true, and I'm gonna kind of like make that red or something. So everyone should sort of double check, and I will also, when I'm going through everyone's worksheets, double check to make sure that if you can't send the P2SH, I guess that probably won't apply to any of the wallets, so I probably don't have to worry about it. All right, so number 12, sending to the support wallet there. I don't think you fill anything in there. 13, Bitcoin's this previous transaction, blah, blah, blah. It's about warnings and warnings. 14. And then for 14, before, if there wasn't any automatic coin join, this would be the one where you would then figure out how many clicks it would take to make mixing or coin join or whatever work. For the vast majority of wallets, that's going to be 100 because they don't support coin join at all or any kind of mixing. Number 15. This starts to get into creating new identities in the test wallet, or accounts or pockets or whatever. As it points out in the directions, if you can't do it in the wallet, then you should give a shot at trying to do it in the operating system. So for example, in Android, apparently you can create a new user account, and you could reinstall the application, and that could get into a lot of clicks, but in theory that would be a way of managing multiple identities with the same application. If you don't feel like doing a gazillion clicks and you get fed up with it, then just do 100 or whatever. And iOS, you can do it on the iPad, but not the iPhone. I wouldn't get too hung up on that one. I would just note that so for example, I know Bitcoin wallet, the Shillbach Bitcoin wallet for Android, it doesn't have this kind of multi-account support. So for, I think it's 15 and 16, one of these questions around there, basically they get full credit because it's not possible to merge inputs between multiple accounts because there are no multiple accounts. So if there are any other wallets that are like that, then you would handle them similarly. Let's see, 17, yeah, so both 16 and 17 seem to be about kind of trying to see if you can merge between accounts. 18 is about importing into the wallet from a one-off private key. Some of the wallets do this, some of them don't. I don't think that's a question that's highly weighted, but the idea was to do with address management and being able to assign things to particular accounts and so forth. All right, so 19, you empty the wallet. 20, looking at the change address output positions and seeing if they seem to be either sorted somehow or randomized rather than always in the same position. Number 21, looking for displayed Bitcoin addresses in the receive funds workflow. Number 22, there was the next couple ones that had to do with Tor seemed to be the most confusing and ambiguous. Apologies for that. So basically the question that primarily came up around this was, so 22 is not about Tor yet, 23 is about Tor. Let me do 22 first. So for 22, this was about finding previously used change addresses. And I noted that Justice identified some ambiguity with regards to the Bitcoin QT wallet. Could you talk a little bit about that, Justice?
That was the same issue as before, in that there's a not recommended warning, but it doesn't tell you why it's not recommended. I think we use the same resolution there as for the previous.
Makes sense to me. And I'm just going to mark that as resolved. Okay. So 23 gets into this Tor stuff, right? And the question is, Tor is handled fairly differently on different platforms. So on a desktop computer, what you would typically do, the kind of shortest path of resistance, well, let's put this out first of all. Any Bitcoin application, if they want to, they can actually bundle Tor into their application. They could actually make it like a dependency, or there are ways that you can kind of compile it into the application. We don't have to get into the details of that, but that would be sort of the ideal, because then the user doesn't have to do any extra work. It's just by virtue of using the application, when they should be doing something through an anonymous channel, the application just has Tor ready to go for them. It does it automatically, and it uses a separate Tor circuit for each message that needs to be unlinkable to the other messages. So that would be the ideal in those cases. Those would get full credit. There aren't any wallets that I'm familiar with that do it quite to that extent, right? So then the question arises, right? If you need to do some Tor installation, some configuration to say like, please use this, this proxy, this docs proxy for this operation, like, where do we start counting the clicks? The more that I think about it, the more that I think that since the ideal is 0 clicks, no extra installation, I think we sort of should be counting the entire installation process in addition to the other stuff. But I'm open to other views on that. What do people think?
Well, that's the proxy for the overall effort, the sort of cognitive load, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. If you have to go through a bunch of steps to install Tor, and you don't normally do that, and frankly, probably the average Bitcoin user is not a Tor user, then every extra click or step is going to dissuade you from going through this step. It does unfortunately lead to a very large number of clicks, but yeah, I think that probably is the fairest and most consistent way of doing things. So I know that for some of the wallets that I have rated, I need to go back and revisit those. One tricky thing is that if we're counting all these clicks, it's fairly inconsistent between different platforms. So you could, let's say, have the multi-bit wallet, which is platform independent because it runs in JVM. But if you do it in Linux versus OS X versus Windows, those are all going to be a different number of clicks based on how difficult it is to install Tor browser is generally the easiest way to make it happen, even though they don't really love for people to use the Tor browser as like the proxy, but you can do it. So it's going to be inconsistent between platforms. So what I would sort of say is just count the number of clicks for your particular platform, note the platform that you're using. If you can think of a way that your setup is different from other people's setups, it's going to change the number of clicks. Just make a note of that. It's annoying that I have to ask people to redo this stuff, but as I've been thinking about it more, I think this makes the most sense. And again, if this is one of those things where if it's like a gazillion clicks, then you just don't want to be bothered to do a gazillion clicks, then just put 100. And someone noted in the chat, once the number of clicks goes over about 10, there's very little change in score. Yeah, that's quite true. So probably a lot of wallets, unfortunately, will not be getting credit for these Tor-related questions, but I do think it is worthwhile to incentivize wallets to make it as simple and easy as possible. We had another question as well about question 20. Before I address that, any other questions or objections or feedback about this Tor-related thing, starting with number 23? Okay, cool, thanks. All right, so back to question 20, which is to do with change address output positions. How do we manage wallets that are switching the position of the change address deterministically? They're not really giving you any privacy if they're just alternating between the two. I haven't actually seen any wallets that do that. If anyone has observed that, I'd be curious to hear about that. What I have seen are wallets that either do a random sort or they do basically an alphabetical sort of the addresses.
Need more input data.
More input data for?
In response to Rasa, you know, if you've got 5 or 6 of the same position, you know, it seems unlikely that it's random, but you might just be really unlucky.
Yeah, if you want to go the extra mile and do a couple more, feel free to do so. Otherwise, just two to the 6 or 7 different addresses or transactions. I think you have a good idea. In the case of blockchain, I don't think they randomize them. I think the change address might be different between different platforms. So we're doing the web wallet this time only. I bet it still just makes it always. Let's see. I know for shared coin, for the shared coin service, we do randomize the position of the outputs using a weak source of entropy, but I digress. But I think for the standard web wallets, I think especially if you're just doing a normal send, like you're not even doing a custom send, I bet it just does it very deterministically, no sorting, no randomization.
You know, I don't think the amount of entropy matters for this specific question. The original question was about if it's like, let's say if you do 5 transactions, it will just alternate in number. That's fine because what we're measuring here is what a blockchain observer who's looking at all the transactions in the blockchain can determine. So there's nothing intrinsically that would link the different transactions in your wallet. So nobody would know that there's a sequence, at least in the context that we're examining here. This is about things like, can these services that do blockchain analysis just assume that there's an X% probability that the last output is change? You know, that's the kind of thing we were examining there.
Yeah, that's true. My privacy researcher mind wants to try to find some way of breaking this, but I think you're right. For the purposes of what we're trying to accomplish this time around, even the alternating thing would be enough to get the score from us. I don't know why you would do that. It would be quite obnoxious for some developer to take that approach, but okay, cool. Any other questions about number 20 and the change address index shuffling or non-shuffling? All right. So we did number 23. 24 was about donations, and the only one that I know of that does any kind of donation thing is Multibit HD. If there are no questions about that, number 25 is to do with telemetry and so forth. I don't think I very much doubt that any of the wallets allow you specifically to route stuff through Tor. But if you were already connected through Tor, then I guess by virtue of that, the telemetry data would go through. So again, I think when counting the number of clicks, so this is for 25B, when counting the number of clicks to route telemetry data through Tor, it would basically be, include the installation of Tor as well. And even though there are multiple questions about the Tor stuff, I think for each one of them, the installation stuff has to be counted. Number 26 was about backing up stuff and whether or not it uses HD. And 26D was to do with whether there's any like SMS or emails or other network type stuff that happens as a result of a backup. I didn't notice that for any of the wallets that I was looking at so far. 27 is about changing the GUI. None of them do this except for possibly Samurai Wallet. I don't know if they got that that feature out yet, but I haven't gotten around to Samurai Wallet quite yet. 28, remote wiping. Again, I think this might be only a Samurai Wallet thing. 29, again, I think is a Samurai Wallet only thing. They have like this feature where you can configure it, so you have to press and you do pound and then a certain number of some random numbers, and you dial that, and that would open up the application that wouldn't normally appear on the list of apps. 30. 30 and 31. I sent out an email a little bit earlier about this, but I just wanted to, we'll just go over it again briefly. So 30 is primarily to do with like this idea of a forget wallet functionality. So if you didn't have to uninstall the whole wallet application, but you just wanted to erase your current wallet and maybe choose a new one or whatever, how many clicks would it take to accomplish that? For a mobile device, and we have to draw the line somewhere for this stuff in terms of forensic rigor, right? Because there's a lot you can do forensically to recover data from a device. The line that we decided to draw for this, and I'm open to other proposals, but I think this is reasonable for this time around, is from the perspective of a user who's just interacting with the device. They're not like they're not doing extra rooting of it. They're not like accessing some kind of crazy panel or exfiltrating data off of the device. If they're just interacting as a user with physical access to the device, what level of interrogation can they do? So for a mobile device, basically, if you can do the forget wallet feature and you can't use any of the other apps on the machine to kind of locate the wallet, that would be sufficient. For a web wallet, it would be clearing the browser history thoroughly, from the beginning of time. Bitcoin Qt to delete the wallet.dat file, that kind of thing. And number 31, which is our last one, is to do with uninstalling the wallet application and making sure that an interrogator of the device would not be able to tell that the wallet was installed. And again, drawing the line somewhere, just doing the normal operation. So not, and someone pointed out like, oh, if you connect a hardware wallet, maybe install some firmware. We're not going to go to that level of detail. This is just, for a hardware wallet, if you just uninstall the applications related to the use of the hardware wallet and clears the web browser history, whatever, then that would be sufficient. Just briefly going through the chat real quick to make sure that there weren't any questions that need to be addressed. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's everything that I've got that I'm definitely aware of. Ambiguities. Does anyone remember, emails that they've sent to me or other things they want to bring up that I haven't addressed so far tonight? All right, cool. Any other related questions, comments, concerns, etc.?
Oh, when did you want updates then? I have to do a little bit of tweaking to my report.
Yes, as you're able to in the next couple days, that would be good. So just to give you an idea of what to expect, I'm going to have people kind of tweak and update their stuff. Justice and I will still be doing more double checking of wallets and comparing our ratings with the ones that have been submitted so far. And if you are a wallet developer, what might be a good idea is to fill out the worksheet for your wallet. That way, it will be really clear if there are conflicts between your assessment of your own wallet and the other person's assessment of it. So we'll discuss that a little bit in the group if necessary, or you can talk individually, that's fine. Basically, all of the end state that we want to have is every copy of the worksheet that we have for wallet X, all of the ratings should be in agreement and consensus by the end of it. I'm the only one who has write access to that folder. So you can leave comments in there and I will happily update things for people, but I'll be the custodian of these final documents. And when I notice that for every wallet, all of them are in consensus about the rating, that's when everything is completed. So I'd like that to happen over the next few days. If you need more time or need some help out with that, just definitely reach out and we'll get it addressed. Yeah, that's the general idea. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, well, that's it. Then thanks so much, everyone, for coming along, working really hard on these ratings. Hugely appreciate it. And yeah, let me know if you have any follow-up questions or comments. And also, everyone that's been participating will be acknowledged in the report, of course. If you have a preference to not be named, or if you want to use a pseudonym or a different version of the name that's in our tracking document, just let me know, and we'll make sure that we get that settled before the report goes out.
One question for the group. Sure. Now that everybody has gone through this procedure once, like some feedback about whether or not it would be good to say in the standard that we would ask every volunteer to do 2 wallets, so that we could better spread out the check and double check. About how long was this procedure taking everyone?
I feel like it took me about 90 minutes to 2 hours the first time, and then the second time was a little faster, just figuring out how the whole decision tree worked.
Yeah, that was my experience as well, was depending on how tired I was when I was doing the wallet, somewhere between 90 minutes and 2.5 hours per wallet. Some of that too was for me as a custodian of this procedure, I'm also trying to figure out okay, how are other people possibly going to perceive this? What do I need to think about when we talk about this next time? That kind of stuff. So that slowed it down a little bit, but yeah, that was about roughly how it went.
Yeah, based on the comments and what people said, it seems Like the first time anyone does this procedure, it takes about 2 hours. When I do some more of these double checks, I'm going to try to keep better track of my time, but I think it's the case that once somebody's gone through the procedure once, it should only take about a half hour, or maybe less, depending on, if no distractions, already familiar with the steps. And maybe some of it would also depend on how fast the blocks are coming. Like, you might get unlucky and you're in one of those periods where it takes you an hour to get a confirmation, or you might be lucky and it all just happens. So, but it's good to know that it seems like the first time is about 2 hours.
I think all of the wallets that I've used so far have been happy to push out unconfirmed UTXOs. So I haven't actually had to wait for confirmations so far. Or maybe I was going so painstakingly slow that I just didn't notice. But
Well, I know with Bitcoin Core, the ability to spend unconfirmed changes an option that can be turned off, but I think it's on by default.
yeah, so perhaps for the next time we do ratings, which will be much later in the year, kind of closer to probably like October or something like that, perhaps. October, November, somewhere in that ballpark. Maybe we would ask people to do a couple things. Just as says maybe December. Yeah, so we're basically shooting for 3 reports per year. I don't want to push the rating like too. It's the more that you put things off, the less slack time that you have to deal with unexpected, speed bumps and stuff like that. So I'd rather not have people rate it like December 29th and try to get a report out the next day or anything crazy like that. And it seems like, particularly for wallet developers, answering the questionnaire, like struggling to get that returned quickly because they're very busy. So yeah, we need to work a little bit on our timeliness. Yeah, so basically cancel your holiday plans for the winter. Cool. All right, thanks very much, guys. I'm going to stop the broadcast now. I'm going to hang around for a few more minutes if people feel like they want to chat, or you can skedaddle.